Yeah, and, don't go buy a car if you wanna buy a house, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah. Big no-no. Big no-no.
exactly.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is The Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. Welcome back to The Closing Table. On this special episode, I have joining with us today, Rachel Commet. How you doing, Rachel?
Sorry, I have a son. I am good. How are you doing?
Very good. I'm happy to have you here. Want to talk to you about some of your experience and just some insights in regards to you and your market as a real estate agent. So let's get straight into it. I want to first talk about, I saw that you didn't come straight into real estate right out of high school. You actually had a few jobs, if I'm not mistaken, in the food, restaurant, hospitality type areas.
Yes.
So talk about how difficult it may or may not have been switching from that industry into real estate.
I will say the easier part is I was a waitress, so I was very used to talking with people. I actually really enjoy that. That part's easy. Now transitioning from a waitress to all of a sudden professional emails and contracts, that
Yeah.
that took some learning. But I was eventually able to get there. I have a great team at my brokerage. I'm at Howard Hanna, and they have
Okay.
so many. So they have they call it Hanna University, right? So if you ever had any questions or needed help or wanted to take a class on open houses, you could just log on and there's all the info you could possibly need. So they were very helpful and have been.
Okay. So what influenced you to switch occupations and industries?
So I was a waitress for a couple of years, and then I had my first daughter. I have 3 kids. So I have a daughter, son, and then I actually have a newborn right now. So I know, busy, but
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you. But after I had my daughter, I struggled with I was struggling what I wanted to do, right? I was oh, I'm not just a mom. I want to, be something else than just staying at home watching the kids, right? I know there was more I could do. And I've always liked houses, right? Well, first of all, I was the classic. I love watching HGTV. I will be so good.
Right. Okay.
It has nothing. I mean, that's HGTV is great and it's fun to watch, but it's not at all what you think it will
I get it. Yeah, it's real business behind that.
Exactly.
Right.
But I reached out to a friend. She's in real estate. She's an older lady, and she, kind of guided me and was like, all right, this is what you have to do. You take this course and then you pass the exam, which the exam has important information on it, but it does not teach you contracts or the in-depth of interacting with people and title company, really. It's just a lot of legal words, actually. That surprised me.
Got you. Okay.
So then, I ended up doing it and I've enjoyed it. And it's nice to have something I don't know how to explain it. It's just very nice to be able to have something I'm passionate about again, I guess.
There you go. Gives you a sense of purpose, and fulfillment. I can understand that. Absolutely. And I want to speak on the fact that you said what was on the exam wasn't necessarily what's actually going on in the real. How often have we learned some things, been to class, took exams, studied, only for things to be completely different in the real world?
Exactly. I was shocked. I was oh God.
That's the story of life, right? Exactly. Pretty much.
I don't use algebra every day.
So you're hitting the ground running. You get your license. You're now a realtor, a real estate agent. I see that you post open houses pretty frequently, right? How often do you host open houses?
I do. Sorry, that's okay. Okay, go take it. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Good.
So when I switched companies. I was originally at another company, and then I went to Howard Hanna.
Okay.
And as soon as like I switched last spring, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I was like, give me everything you can teach me. And I was like,
Yeah.
and if whenever anyone had an open house, I was like, please let me do it. So
Oh.
I in the summer, oh God, I would say I would do. It felt like at least 2 a month, if more, if possible.
Okay.
Um, and part of it's, well, to learn, right? I want to learn as much. I want to see as many houses I can because I am fairly new. I started almost, oh God, is it 2 years or a year and a half ago? Um, so I do it. I haven't since because in winter it kind of calms down a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
people are busy with the holidays, but it's starting to pick back up here a little bit.
Yes. Yes. And when you say pick back up here, can you tell the people where your market is
Yes,
specifically?
I'm in Jackson, Michigan, so
Hmm.
it's I guess it's like, I don't think it's a huge city at all. Like, it's not like Detroit, right? But
Right. Right.
it's pretty expanded, right? Like, we have so many towns and cities in Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
that it feels large in that aspect. But we're a lot of country, so
Correct. Correct. No, I get it. A lot of surrounding cities to kind of make up and
yeah,
bring the
exactly.
people together in that one town. Okay. Okay. So how do you feel? Because I had my license as an MLO at one point, mortgage loan originator.
Oh,
And and I spoke to some realtors about how they felt about this, but I want to get from your experience. How do you feel about mortgage loan originators showing up to your open houses?
personally, I think that's awesome. Just because,
Hmm.
yeah, it doesn't bother me. One, I always want to make a connection. It's always nice to know who's working, who's new, who's been there for a while. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I mean, they have stuff that they can teach me too, right? And
Right.
it doesn't bother me. I've actually had some loan officers ask to like join on an open house, like, say, hey, if you have an open house, let me know and we'll set up together.
That's usually how it should work, right?
Mhm.
Partnering, teaming up with people. Yeah.
Exactly. And you want to be able to feel like you can trust like your loan officer that you're using. I mean, you want to have a loan officer that when you, like, a client ask, hey, where do I go? Where do I begin? I want to
Right,
be like,
right.
oh, this person's awesome. You
Okay.
can trust them. They'll take you through the steps. Like, I want to be able to feel confident in saying that.
There you go. So do you have an MLO that you have been working with consistently or that you prefer to work with or will work with? Or do you kind of like have like a few MLOs that you say, oh, well, if I need somebody for this, I'll go this way or.
Exactly. I have a
Okay.
few. I do have like a top that like, if I ever have a question, I instantly am like, I call him or I can text him and be like, hey, I'm having this issue. What's your thoughts? So
Right.
he's
Okay.
pretty awesome on that.
Okay. See, your perspective on MLOs showing up to your open house is a little bit different from what I've heard from previous
Oh,
realtors.
wait, really?
Because I mean, I guess it's the approach, right? Because sometimes they were saying, yeah, I hate it when MLOs just show up unannounced. And
Fair.
then when they show up, they're trying to pitch their service to a client they're currently trying to show a home to. And it's like, yo, can I do this, please? So I can understand that perspective. But if their approach is correct,
Yeah.
if they let you know ahead of time, or even if they do show up and they let you do your thing first and then try to conduct business in a partnership afterwards, I can see that working out. But I understand. I appreciate your perspective on that because some of the realtors I used to speak with are like, no, I'm good. I already have somebody. I don't just show up tomorrow. I'm like, okay, cool. I get
No.
it. Cool. All right.
Right? I mean, we're all here to learn. It doesn't bug me. Did you ever do that? When you were a loan officer, did you go and no?
No. I mean, I just apply the same regular principles of adulthood. I'm not just gonna show up to anyone's anything,
Yes.
unless
Ex-
I know there's an open invitation. But no, pretty much no. So,
Fair.
but so you're in the Jackson market right now. What do
Yes.
you feel like the benefits are of living in Jackson, Michigan?
I think it's a sweet town. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I grew up here, so of course I'm gonna say that. But
Okay.
there's there's oh my gosh, what did I say? There feels like it's a little town, but it also feels like it can be very big. Like, we have some
Correct.
schools that have, like, 100 kids per graduating class, right? And then there are other
Mm-hmm.
schools that are, like, 300. Um, I think it's a great place to grow your family. We have, like, nothing crazy, right? But we have, like, splash pads, we have the Cascades Falls, we
There
have
you
fun
go.
stuff to do.
Yeah.
We have festivals in the summer. I always think that's fun. Like, like, what is it called? The Jubilee, where it's just hot air balloons.
Oh yeah, so if you ever drive on 94 in
Yes.
Michigan, you see the hot air balloons around, and I didn't know. So that's coming from Jackson.
Yes, exactly. It's really cool to
Ah,
see.
it is. It really is. You can almost see it from anywhere, from most places. Like, wow,
I know. It's
that
really
is pretty
fun.
exciting.
And if
Yeah.
you take your kids too, oh, they love, like, I
Hmm.
mean, what kid wouldn't be like, "Oh my god." But
Have you ever gotten in one? Is it
oh
like,
god, I would be scared.
I
Um,
know?
I don't
Woo!
know. I think you could probably get, I don't know. I've never tried just because that scares me.
Yeah, yeah. No, the
I
thought of it was scary. I get it. I get it. I just asking. I'm sorry, but
No, you're
but yeah, that's
fine.
nice. That is. I know. Jackson has a lot to offer. They even have a state fair where they have artists
Yep.
come and perform. I've been to one of the state fairs, so
Mm,
I mean, every town has their little niche. Their
mhm.
the things about the town that makes it unique. Everyone doesn't necessarily want to live in a big city like Detroit or Grand
Yes.
Rapids or something like that. Some people prefer the rural areas, the small towns, the
Mhm.
the suburbs or whatever the case may be. So Jackson and its uniqueness has some of its own perks. So I'm glad you were
Yeah.
able to shine that on. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk about the mortgage process.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you will reach out to MLOs
Yeah.
that you may have questions for. They
Yeah.
have all the knowledge in regards to the mortgage process. So what are some of the obstacles or common setbacks that you've had some clients face in regards to the mortgage process?
Well, there are times like, getting, like, approved, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they're able to, do a rural development loan, right? If, that's like the only loan that they can qualify for, that they were able to get them.
Right.
Um, there's that. There are times that I have clients come to me and I'm like, hey, first step, my thing is, first step is to contact a lender to see what you get approved of. And then they're
Right.
able to, and if you can't, they can advise you what to do to be able to qualify in a year and a
Mm,
half a year, whatever it is. Um, it's pretty, yeah, I would say pretty much just getting approved has been the harder part for some people, obviously, because building credit can be hard.
yeah. So credit seems to be one of the most common issues. It's not necessarily cash or collateral or anything of that nature. I mean, I'm pretty sure it can be a mixture, but are you pretty I'm pretty much trying to make like some type of
Mhm.
commonality when it or common denominator so that people can know if you are looking to apply or get pre-approved, this is one of the common things that could be a roadblock, and you're saying potentially credit, correct?
Yeah, and, like, so, like, don't go buy a car if you wanna buy a house, right?
Oh
Because
yeah. Big no no. Big no no.
exactly. Like,
Yeah.
pretty much stuff like that, try to make sure you have, low, like, don't have high debt if possible,
Yeah.
and if you do, I mean, no shame, just,
Mm,
work on, lowering it if possible.
correct.
Yeah, I'd say that's the biggest issue nowadays. Well, for as long as I've been 2 years, but, um, yeah, that would be my biggest issue. I mean, there's always issues with, like, when you're in the process, something can pop up, like, a lien on a property or something, and then you got to, like,
Mm.
deal with that, but
Mhm.
those always
Okay.
are fun.
Okay. So I'm glad you brought that up because I want to get into those type of things when we move further along the process of the mortgage. So let's get into the inspection process.
Yes.
I'm assuming you've been a part of some type of inspection
Mhm.
processes throughout the entire, purchasing process or whatnot. Um, what are some common issues with inspections that often get noted that you kind of want to bring to the table?
There are, like, I will always say, like, when you're going through, I always say go to your inspection if you can, like, as a client, like someone who's buying the house, and even as a
For
real
sure.
estate agent, just because you could always just learn from the inspector.
Right.
But I always tell them to look out for, like, the most expensive parts of owning a house that could go
Mm-hmm.
bad, right? Like the roof,
Correct.
foundation issues,
Yep.
windows if they're all old, that adds up quickly.
Yep.
Water, water's, oh man, it's a pain when you get that in your basement or attic or whatever.
Mm.
Um, so I'd always say keep an eye out on those, and if they're there, discuss with the inspector, like, okay, so what's the process? And they can't give you the exact amount of like, oh, it's going to be this much, right? They're not
Right.
fixing it.
They're just telling you what are they seeing potentially wrong with the property.
Exactly.
Got you.
Exactly. So they're just there to be like, hey, I think, in roughly 5 years, you're going to need a new one. Um, and I mean, they don't
Mm.
have a crystal ball, right? So it's
Correct.
just an estimation.
Right.
And furnaces. Sorry, furnaces can
I
be,
was waiting for that to
yeah.
come up. Yep. Okay. You hit on like the top 4 or 5 of them. Yep. That's true. I get
Those
it.
are always kind of like, oh, but
Yep.
every home, you also got to be realistic that there are going to be issues with a home, right?
Yes.
No home's perfect, regardless if it was just built. There's always something. Obviously, if it's
Mm-hmm.
just built, you hope there's not a roof falling, but
Right.
um,
Right.
there. So you got to be realistic, because I've had clients who are like, oh my, it's overwhelming. They're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And it's like, it's okay. This, let's say you just need a new water heater. Well, I'm going to say, oh God, 800, or, depending on if you get installed,
Yeah.
1,000, 500, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, if it's more of the bigger stuff, like I mentioned, that's where you kind of want to take a step back and be like, is this too much for me to handle? And if it is,
Correct.
that's completely fine to back out. No one wants you to buy a house and then feel overwhelmed and it was regret. We want you to be happy. We want you to, it's one of the biggest expenses you will probably do your whole life. So you
And
want to be
correct.
cautious
Mm-hmm.
and make sure it's right for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm so glad you made that point. Like she said, roofing issues, foundation issues, uh, uh, um, furnace
Mm-hmm.
issues, furnace and or water heater issues. What are we talking about? Pipes or and water pipelines and
Yep.
things of that nature. Windows, also,
Yes.
these are things that could cost you $10,000, $15,000, maybe even
Yep.
$20,000 on top of your purchase price. So you make sure you're there for the inspection, which I'm surprised people wouldn't show up for
I
the
know.
inspection if you're buying a house. Please show up for it.
I know, right?
Show up, find out if these are any issues. If not, then trust me, they're probably within reach. If you just have to repaint or change some carpet, some
Yes.
hardwood, laminate, that's pretty simple, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
So well spoken from a professional. You heard it from her first.
Thank
Let's
you.
get into the appraisal now.
Yes.
What is an appraisal process even like? What do they look at? Like, can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So for me as a real estate agent, usually I like once we get to the appraisal part, it's kind of like in the lender's hands, right? Like, I mean, obviously I'm there, right? But what a
Right.
lender usually does is they get it scheduled with an appraiser. And they don't get to pick the appraiser, right? Some people are like, well, can I just have a new
Mm-hmm.
one? Right? Because they don't like the
Yeah.
results. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. It's like, from my understanding, you have like a bunch of appraisals, you pick from the bowl, oh, this is who I got, this is who's appraising at this time, kind of thing.
Right.
And then they schedule it, they go and appraise it, and I would say it can take up to a week to get, everything back, their findings or whatever. Most of the time, houses do appraise for at value, or if you're lucky, you got it cheaper and it appraised for more, right?
Right.
But there are occasions where they don't, and that's always like, it panics buyers, or oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
what what do I do? And so there are a couple options you can do. And it was kind of hard when it was a seller's market, right? Because they had
Right.
so many people interested in their house that it felt like the buyers did not have a leg up. So if you were to run into that boat of it not appraising, the banks are not going to loan you more for a house for what it's not worth, right? They're not going to give you more money for
Right.
that.
And just for clarity, you mean like if the appraisal comes in lower than what the purchase price is?
Yes, sorry, thank you.
Okay. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
And so they're not going to loan you money for what the house isn't worth, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
either the sellers come down in price
Mm-hmm.
or you
You
make
come
up the
up with the rest of
difference.
that money. Yeah.
Exactly. And when it was a seller's market, it was more like, no, you come up with that money, or I'm just going to put on a market because I have,
And somebody else is gonna come and scoop it right up. Oh my
exactly.
goodness.
And it's slowing down and it's not as brutal anymore. Thank the Lord. But so sellers are more willing to work. I mean, occasionally you'll get the people who won't, but now you have the option of trying to be like, no, let's come down. I don't want to pay more for the house unless you really want it. And then you're like, my dream home, I can't fathom losing it.
Right.
Because if they don't want to come down and you do not want to go up, the contract can end up, you just lose it, right? It becomes void. So
Right.
you'll just have to lose the money on the appraisal, sadly, and the inspection. And it goes back on the market. So hopefully you try to work something out.
Just real quick, how much are we talking about roughly for an appraisal and inspection?
Oh, like how much they cost to get?
Correct.
Oh, okay. So with the inspection, it kind of depends on, are you just doing a basic inspection? Are you getting, do you have well water, septic? Because that
Basic.
all, basic
Mm-hmm.
inspection, I'd say like 400.
Okay.
If you have to get well or septic, because I think some loan types require that. If you have a well or a septic,
Right.
I want to say that's FHA, but do not quote me on that.
Gotcha.
That's like $50 each. So
Okay.
it's not horrible, but I mean, if you lose that
Right.
money, that sucks.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it'll add up, especially if you do that a few times. So yeah.
Exactly. And then appraisal, I
Okay.
think, is roughly 500.
Okay. So we're
So
talking about maybe 1,000, 1,500 roughly, probably depending on your market and your
exactly.
needs for an
Exactly.
appraisal and inspection. Okay. Something to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, audience.
Right?
So besides comps, what other factors do you know that will go into the appraisal process and that would influence the factors of the value?
Like the bed, like how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms,
Oh, okay.
just like the basic, like the condition of the house, right? It can't be like falling
Mm-hmm.
apart. Square footage, all that. And then as you said, comps as well. So yeah, it's hard though sometimes, I don't know, with the appraisal, sometimes you think it's going to, like, you just never know, right?
Yeah.
There's no secret formula, I feel like, where you think there would be, but where you just plug in, okay, there's this, right? But there's not, and it's basically you're waiting to hear back from the appraiser on what they thought and what they value at it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, and I think I've only had it one time not come up for what the house was what they were buying the house for didn't appraise, and it was like $1,000. But still, that buyers can be like, oh my, right? They weren't
Yeah.
expecting it, and
Yeah.
that adds up when you're like, I need to paint, I want to put carpet in, and they
Yeah.
start adding up the
Closing
numbers.
costs and
Hmm.
everything. Oh my goodness.
I know.
They're trying to take everything from me.
I know. Sometimes that's how they feel.
I know. Hey, but it's part of home ownership, though. With that being said, let's move on to the benefits and challenges of home ownership in today's market in Jackson, Michigan. Can you speak on what you feel like are the benefits of owning a home in today's market?
Yeah.
And then what are the challenges of
So
owning a home in today's market?
the benefit, well, one is like if you have a landlord, you have to request to be able to paint and all that. This
Mm-hmm.
in Jackson, we're not strict for the most part. You can paint. I mean, we have houses that are purple. Like you can paint the house. Not many, but we
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Some people do that.
Exactly. And so like we aren't strict where you can only have like this, unless you're in a homeowner association. That's different. They're more strict. But for the most part, you can paint, do whatever you want, paint your walls on the inside, whatever color, take down walls. Well, if you're trying to add on, though, you do need to get approval from the city, but they're usually chill. And then, building equity, right? So that's amazing. I always advise, if you can, try to buy, because in the long run, you'll be able to make more off your house if you take care of it, right? You can't expect the house to sell if it needs a new roof and a new furnace and the windows are old, depending on when you bought it, of course. But yeah, I would say that's the benefit. The negative is, it's work to be a homeowner. You do have to make sure, you're keeping up with cleaning the gutters. And, because in the long run, if you don't do that, that will negatively affect, how long your roof lasts or your gutters last. And then you're going to end up having to pay for that to get it fixed. So that's why you find older people willing to they want an apartment. They don't want to deal with that. They just want to sit back and relax. They don't want to have to get a new oven when it breaks. That's on the, the apartment complex.
Yeah.
So that's just like the negative. But if you can keep up with it, and if you can try to have like a savings account for when something goes, because that will happen at some point, you should be good.
Yeah. And that also kind of speaks to the cycle of adulthood in some type of way when you said that, because when you're young, you're in your 20s or whatever, you're probably renting, you're in college or whatever. Then you grow up, you're probably in your 30s, maybe you start to actually buy a home. You're buying your first home. You have it for a while, eventually you have kids, you grow up into the kids, move out.
Yep.
You have too much home.
Yeah.
So now you want to sell the home, get the equity that you raised. You don't want to cut grass anymore, take care of anything. You want to call a landlord. Exactly. So now you take all the equity, you just move in a condo in Florida, something like that. I'm sorry, I'm just probably planning out my life right now. All right, never mind. But good. That speaks volumes as to the challenges and benefits. So thank you for explaining that, Rachel. Yeah. And thank you for joining us here at the closing table so much. I appreciate your time. Before we get out of here, Rachel, do us a favor. If you have a last word, or if you want to tell the people how they can contact you, this is your time to do so.
Yeah, I will just say quickly on, if you're looking to buy or sell, best step, always contact a real estate agent, and they can guide you to like a lender or whatever. Just because you could get approved right now, or it may take some time. And they'll be able to, give you tips. And if you want to reach me, if you just go on my Facebook page, which is Rachel Commet, and Commet is spelled Commet. It's Rachel Commet, Howard Hanna Real Estate Services. So I'll be able to help you if you had any questions, or were just curious, or want to say hi. So
Hey, all right. Make sure you say hi to Rachel and reach out to Rachel Commet if you have any questions regarding real estate in the Jackson, Michigan area. Thank you again, Rachel, for joining us here at the closing table, and for you watching on YouTube. If you've gotten this far, I need you to do us a favor. Please hit the like button, hit the share button, and also please, hit the subscribe button also. Hit the alert so you know whenever we're putting up content. Also, if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, any other podcast platforms, do the same. Hit the like button, give us a 5-star rating, and also subscribe so you can get our latest content. And I want to leave this question for the audience also before we get up out of here. What are some obstacles you've had to face in your mortgage purchasing process? And if you haven't purchased a home at all, what's stopping you? Leave your comments below. Other than that, see you next time.